What's going on, hikers? In today's video I am going to share with you some myths that I hope that you will avoid, because it seems like a lot of people fall for these, and whenever they're hiking and backpacking it causes a lot of headache and a lot of heartache. This channel is actually all about helping you increase your quality of life while you're out on trail. So the first myth to avoid is that you have to hike far in order to be considered backpacking. Don't listen to people telling you that. This is not just for people with mobility issues that can't actually backpack very far, but this goes to all people. I would urge you to, if you haven't already, try a trip that's a little bit more lazy. Last weekend I went out with backpacking with Jason, and I showed him around my neck of the woods. I actually hit this trail with my wife Bridget as well last year. I'll link that video on this one if you want to check that adventure out. But we had a great time. I did get basically eat up with a lot of poison ivy because it's still fairly warm where I'm living, but that is okay. I'm gonna survive. We only backpacked in maybe an hour to 2 hours. Wasn't very many miles, and for me that kind of trip is super fun. It's not the only kind of trip I take. I did a through hike of the Long Trail a few years ago, and I was slugging out some 20-mile days. But the kind of lazy trip where you don't have to walk very far and you carry in as much stuff as you want is just as much backpacking as doing 20 to 30-mile days. Our second myth to avoid is you can only go backpacking in fair weather. I would caution you to go if it's going to be high winds or like hailing, torrential downpour. But if you're just going on a normal old regular backpacking trip and there may be some rain in the forecast, sometimes that adds to the adventure. And especially if it's just one part of your trip that you're getting rained on or getting some inclement weather, that can be perfectly fine. Now it is important to be prepared, and I'm going to show you the rain jacket that I like to use. It's the Patagonia Torrent Shell 3L. It's got a lot of great features that I really like. It has some pit zips, so if you're sweating out there you can kind of unzip the pits and let some of that sweat out so you're not getting so hot and steamy. It's also got the hood, and the hood cinches up so that you can kind of bound it a little closer to your head. It's not going to blow off, and it keeps the rain off of you. Of course it fully zips up. This one has pockets, so if you need to keep something on the top half of you, you have those pockets available. But nice rain jacket. Also, if it's going to be snowy like a winter trip, that can be super fun as well, as long as you know what you're doing. So it doesn't have to be just a fair weather in order for you to go. Those types of trips are absolutely fantastic, but get out there and explore in all different types of weather and see what you like and add to your adventure. Our third myth is you have to either wear trail runners or boots. Now both have their place, and the obvious way to dispel this myth is your other types of shoes. For example, sandals or toe shoes, or if you're really wild, no shoes. You could go barefoot like Cody Lundeen. But I'll give you a couple examples of good fits for these different shoes. Now my waterproof boots, if I'm going to submerge them, I'm going to go through deep creek crossings or something, probably not a great fit for me because they turn into little swimming pools and keep my feet wet, versus the trail runners that'll dry out slightly as I'm walking. But you know, I took a trip to New Hampshire last year and done some snowshoeing with It's Good in the Woods, and I gotta tell you, the boots come in very handy. I was actually wearing some Columbia boots, and they were insulated, and I used gaiters to go around the boots and up my leg to help keep them dry from the snow. And I would not wear my trail runners. One, because my feet would get cold, but two, because they'd be soaking wet, which would be a really bad situation. You know, I don't want frostbite. So depending on the situation you're gonna be in, take the right fit for you in that circumstance. Sometimes you wanna make your shoes waterproof, and that comes in super handy, especially in the wintertime. I use this product called Sealskins. They are a waterproof sock. Your feet aren't going to sweat on the inside, and there's a liner that keeps your feet dry from the water coming in from the outside. So if I'm going to wear my trail runners in the winter and I know I'm going to be crossing some creeks, these are actually knee high, so they're super long, and I can wear these and I'll be in good shape. My feet are going to stay nice and warm and dry, which is the perfect situation. Now these I'll link in the description, along with all the other pieces of gear that I'm talking about in today's video, and you can find them all at today's video sponsor, which is Backcountrycom. If you want to save some money on your gear, I'd suggest check out Backcountry.com. Use my code JeremiahBC15 to get 15% off of your first order. Some exclusions do apply though. Now while you're checking out the gear on the site, they have all kinds of different pieces, but you might need some advice. Maybe you're stuck between a couple of pieces of gear, or you don't really know where to start. They have these people called gearheads. They're experts in the field, and they have all kinds of knowledge when it comes to outdoor pieces of gear, whether we're talking water skiing, backpacking, camping, hiking, any sport, any outdoor activity you can think of. These people can help you out. Now I typically will chat with them, and I'll go to the hike and camp because those are the pieces of gear I'm looking for, but you can also call them if you want to and get set up with a gearhead and have a good conversation with them, and they can advise you on whatever pieces of gear will help fit your needs. So thank you, Backcountry.com. Make sure you all check them out. Go on the website and search for whatever pieces of gear that are going to help you get outside. Our fourth myth is you have to either be a hammock camper or a tent camper. Now, depending on the circumstances or the area that I'm going to, I would consider myself both. This is actually the Pride of Kentucky. It's my custom hammock made by my friend Miyagi, and this thing is absolutely awesome, especially when I'm going to areas that doesn't have a lot of flat spots that I could pitch a tent, or if I'm going on a trip that has a lot of people. I love taking the hammock with me because I kind of let them pick their spot, and then I'll go find my own spot, because you can always typically find a couple of trees, especially in the area that I live in, that would be good for hammock camping. Now the tent camping is also great. I love the tent camp, especially in the wintertime, because I feel like I stay a little bit warmer in the tent. It's like my own little house. I got a lot of privacy. I also pretty much tent camp every time that my wife and I go together, because we can share the weight of the tent. So that's a little pro tip for you. If you're going you and another person, you feel comfortable enough to actually share the tent, then y'all can split that weight and lighten your load a little bit. But don't fall into the mindset that you either have to be a tent camper or a hammock camper. If you have access to both, use them both. They're both great, they're both fun, and they both have their spots. Our fifth myth today is that you have to travel far in order to go hiking or backpacking. Now my circumstances, I live in rural Kentucky. Sometimes I do travel to go backpacking, like I mentioned New Hampshire earlier, but everybody's circumstances are different. If you're living in the middle of a giant city where it takes you an hour or two just to get outside the city, totally different than the way I live, but don't worry, no matter your circumstances, I have a few pieces of advice for you to discover hiking trails or even overnight areas that you could go to take a backpacking trip. My first piece of advice would be to check out some different apps that have trails on them. For example, All Trails or Gaia, maybe the Hiking Project or Onyx. These are all apps, some of them totally free, that you can check out and discover those areas. You can also check out Facebook groups. So if you're on Facebook, sometimes there's virtual groups. Maybe I type like Kentucky and hiking, and I can find groups where I can talk to people, get information, see trips that other people are going on. But there's even groups that you can check out that meet in person. So you can build relationships and friends with these people and discover all kinds of different areas and have some awesome relationships out of it. And my last piece of advice for finding areas to hike and backpack in is to go to your local outfitter if you have one. That sometimes there's people there that it's their sole job is to help you plan a trip, to give you information on the area, to help find the right time of year for you to check it out. But oftentimes your local outfitter is just filled with people like you and me that their job is a retail job, but they love the outdoors, and you'll be surprised at how much they're willing to share with you and talk to you, especially them living in the area. Maybe pick up a map of your area and ask them about it. Our sixth myth today is that you have to strive toward becoming an ultralight backpacker. Basically what that means is you're taking the minimal amount of weight with you to hit the trail, oftentimes below 10 or maybe 8 pounds. You don't have to do that. There are some interesting trips I've taken where I've tried to go ultralight and minimize that amount of weight, but like I mentioned earlier, sometimes I like to go on these shorter trips and I take all kinds of stuff, and a lot of times the backpack I'll take is this 65 liter Osprey Atmos, and this thing, it's got an internal frame. It helps carry a big load of weight, even up to 40 pounds. Sometimes I'll stuff this sucker full. But if you do want to go ultralight, and you don't have to, you can take like a frameless backpack. So this backpack, you can see I can just wad it up. It weighs under a pound, whereas the Osprey that I just showed you weighs like 4 pounds. But this thing will not carry as much weight as comfortable. And the reason why is it doesn't have the frame to support the weight. And plus it's a smaller volume backpack. So you have to take lighter and lighter things and smaller, more compact things. And that's fine. It just depends on what kind of trip you want to take and what kind of backpacker you want to be. But don't let anybody tell you that you have to be on this like sliding scale spectrum and be pushing your way toward the ultralight side. Our 7th myth is that another one of those binary options. You're either a solo backpacker or you like to hike in a group or maybe with a partner. Now you could find your lane and you only stick to that one, but I have found they each have their perks, okay? If you're going solo, you don't have to answer to anybody. You can sleep in, but you're also not experiencing the trip with anybody, so you don't get that shared experience, and it also could be a little bit lonely. But when it comes to a group, sometimes you might have to help people set up their tents because they don't know what they're doing, or help show them things, and that can be fun, but it can also be kind of a burden. But on the contrary, you get to experience life together. You get to share the trail together, learn about other cultures, build relationships with people, and that can be super awesome. So I would say try the different options. You will kind of find a lane, some things that you like more than others, and you'll kind of have a little community around you to enjoy nature together. Or maybe you'll go by yourself every time. Who knows? But that's all I got today. Make sure you give me one of these, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with some other myths that I should have included in this video. We'll see you in the next one.